Hello friends! It is I have returned. I know that last time I promised you I was going to get up a Hunger Games reaction video and my week just got super busy, so if you actually still want to see that later behind the times, past, the legitimate reaction video date, let me know and I'll make one, but I doubt that you do. Bex is really cool. If you haven't watched hers, check hers out. It's really great. She's got a really interesting look at the movie, which is a little different from my own. Anyway, today I am here with another book review for you since I just finished the marvelous Will Grayson by John Green and David Levithan. I think I'm saying that right. Last night. It's got a really super sparkly shiny cover, which I like. And I quite enjoyed this book. It's about two boys, both by the name of Will Grayson. One is sort of I don't want to say normal, because no one's really normal, but you're sort of maybe standard or usual. Those are both normal synonyms. But misunderstood, sort of just coming into himself, teenager-y kind of person who's, doesn't really have a lot of confidence, doesn't really have any friends, has sort of come off of having a lot of friends in the past and is now stuck with just a couple really close people that he knows and isn't really sure about himself at all. But, that's sort of normal teenage angsty kind of thing going on there. And the other, Will Grayson, is very, very different. He's a bit more he's depressed, he's unhappy, he's confused, he doesn't understand himself. He comes from, I think, from what I can surmise, a really unfortunate home situation, and he doesn't quite know how to handle life, and he's coping with that. And they both face challenges. The first Will Grayson that I mentioned is, like I said, coming into himself, has some kind of trouble understanding love and how to interact with people and make himself feel safe in a way that doesn't cut him off from everybody else. The second Will Grayson is working on feeling better about life and just getting through the day. Something so simple as getting through the day is a challenge for him, and he's also underneath that struggling with his sexuality too. And he doesn't quite know how to tell people, or even, I think, tell himself how he's feeling a lot of the time. And so they meet one night, both Will Graysons meet in Chicago, where the story is set in Illinois, and they discover that they both have the same name, and their lives are suddenly brought together. Not, active, above brought together, but they're just suddenly brought together by this big, flamboyant, wonderfully optimistic character who I think was probably my favorite in this book, named Tiny. Ironic. Read it and you'll know what I mean. Who gives the story a level of acceptance and that search for acceptance that's not quite so meta as the other two, because the novel is told from the perspective of both Will Graysons, and you're sort of inside both of their heads, and it's really challenging. I don't want to say challenging. Maybe it's just rather nice to have it from a different perspective of acceptance, because I think that's really what the book is kind of about. And I won't tell you how their lives change, because that's a little bit spoilerish, but Tiny, I will say, is a really great character who definitely brings people together, whether they want to be brought together or not. And one of his friends, whose name is Jane was also one of my favorite characters, just because of her sort of, I don't know, quiet, intellectual, and geeky badassery that she had going on for her. I don't know why she struck me, but she was super cool. The book, on the whole, I was not super hooked at the start. I kind of felt it was interesting, but not totally compelling. But the end was what won me back for it. I plowed through the last 100 pages, just full speed into it. That was what totally got me back on the board with the whole novel. And maybe it's my love of musical theater, maybe it's my love of sort of indecisive endings. I won't say any more about what that actually means, because, spoilers, sweetie. But I think it definitely was a combination of those two things that made me redeem this book for myself a little bit there. Or it was just really fantastic writing, and maybe it was a combination of the two, if that's the more likely outcome. Looking back, I really liked it. It just took off and drew a great conclusion, and it left me with a really solid feeling of the book. It's about 300 pages, your standard YA length. I really like that shiny cover. Ooh. The writing is also something I want to point out. This book has two authors. It's written from the perspective of both Will Graysons, and one author, I believe this is how it worked. One author wrote one Will Grayson, and the other author wrote the other Will Grayson. And if you follow us on Twitter, you know that I was having a struggle, at least toward the beginning, and maybe somewhat, I think, into the middle of this book, with the two author ID challenge, as I like to call it. I was so worked up about figuring out which Will Grayson was John Green's Will Grayson, and which Will Grayson was David Levithan's Will Grayson, and I think I've got it figured out. I think the one that is written in completely sort of grammatically correct English is John Green's Will Grayson, and the other one that is written entirely in lowercase with sort of bulleted script-like dialogue, I think that's David Levithan's Will Grayson, and I'm only making that assumption having read all of John's other books. So tell me what you think. If you think I'm wrong, tell me in the comments. Tell me if you've read this, what you think, who you think which Will Grayson is, because I'm really curious to see if anyone agrees with me. But the lowercase script thing, the sort of, I don't want to call him this, but I kind of have to. The depressed Will Grayson always writes in lowercase letters, and his sentences are sort of short, and I would show you, but it's hard to see. His sentences are short and sometimes not run on fragments, and all of his dialogue is name of person speaking colon what they say. It's never indented, it's never got any quotation marks or anything like that. It's very, like I said, it's very script-like. And that's interesting because it's crazy to read. It definitely throws you from what you've just read, what I think is John's writing, which is littered with all sorts of flourish and eloquence and intelligent, smart-sounding words, which is not to say that David Levithan's isn't, but David Levithan's definitely has a very more real, down-to-earth, definite kid feel to it. This is definitely a kid who is a product of misunderstanding and sadness, and you can very much tell by the way that this is written. And it makes for a good differentiation between the two, but it's a crazy jump. But I think there might be some playwriting connection, because I will say for one thing that there is a musical that gets written in this book and performed. A musical that is written and performed, and maybe there's a little bit of a kind of tie together there with the fact that one of these is written sort of like a script. No stage directions, obviously, but it's all internal dialogue. But hey, you never know. Sneaky guys, those two. So, 4 stars, I would say, on Will Grayson by, again, John Green and David Levithan. So let me know if you've read it, what you think, if you're interested in reading it, and anything else you might really want to say. So we've passed 120 subscribers on YouTube, which makes us really happy. So thank you guys so much for that. It's all due to you and your commitment to watching us talk. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.